Have you recently sat down to work on your PhD discussion chapter? You've opened the document, you've looked at your findings, literature, theory, comments, notes, and you're just frozen. A lot of qualitative PhD researchers get to the writing up stage and feel exactly like this. It feels a little bit like being a learner driver when you stall at a busy junction and the traffic starts building up behind you. People start beeping their horns and you become hyper aware that everybody's looking at you. You know that you just need to move and sort yourself out, for goodness sake. But the pressure itself makes it harder to think clearly, and you're just like, and you can't do anything. PhD writing towards the end can feel exactly the same. By the end of this video, I want you to feel less like your thesis is falling apart and more like you're in the completely normal process of making sense of your research, because that is what's going on here. I'm also going to give you 4 practical ways into the work to reduce the pressure just enough so you can start moving forward again. If we've not met before, hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and in the last 20 years that I've been supporting qualitative researchers, I've seen a lot of people get to this final stage and feel incredibly frustrated at how hard it is. I don't think anyone quite prepares you for it, because if there's a part that's going to be really tough, surely that's the middle, right? No, it gets harder at the end. So let's get into it. One of the biggest misunderstandings about writing up a PhD is people assume, well, it's just writing up. Surely things should feel easier by the time you get to this point. After all, you know your topic really well. You've collected the data, you've done the analysis. So when writing all of a sudden starts to feel harder rather than easier, the default position for most PhD researchers is to think that they've got something wrong somewhere. Usually you haven't. What's happening is that you're moving from analysis into integration and synthesis. You're trying to explain what matters, what connects, what your findings mean, how they relate to theory and literature, and what your overall contribution to knowledge is. That requires a complete shift in the nature of the work that you're doing. And all of that does sound massively overwhelming, doesn't it, when you think of all of the things that you're trying to do at this stage. Remember when you first started learning to drive? All of those things that you had to do at the same time. Checking your mirrors, steering, signalling, keeping your eye on how fast you were going. At the beginning, you're like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to manage to do all of this? But you do. And you get to the stage where all of that stuff just becomes second nature to you. The same thing can happen with your thesis. Now, one of the biggest things that keeps PhD researchers stuck when they get to this stage, the discussion chapter writing stage, is they assume that they need to be clear before they start writing. They need clarity on what it is they're going to put on the page before they start typing. You don't need that. Most clarity around your PhD argument is going to come through writing, not before it. A lot of qualitative researcher writing problems are not actually writing problems, they are thinking problems. Sometimes I don't know how to start writing actually means I don't know what matters the most. You'll discover what actually matters through the writing. Your early drafts are thinking spaces. They're where connections between things in your data actually start becoming visible. They're where your interpretation starts to really sharpen and your argument gets a lot clearer. So you need to write, okay? One of the biggest causes of writing blocks at this stage is trying to hold your entire thesis in your head at once. That's a lot. Your findings, your literature, your theory, your contribution, your structure, your methodology, your supervisor's comments. That paragraph that you still can't get comfortable with. And that paper that you think you really should reread. Your brain overloads at this point, and I think this is where the learner-driver analogy comes in again. When somebody first learns to drive, they're not naturally trying to watch every mirror, change gear, keep their eye on pedestrians, monitor their speed, read road signs, listen to instructions, all at the same time. At the beginning, even finding the biting point on the clutch feels massively overwhelming. I know it did for me. You're doing one thing at a time. Checking your mirrors becomes second nature. Changing gear becomes second nature. Junctions and roundabouts feel less frightening and everything starts to come together. But that integration only happens because those skills were layered gradually. You were learning one thing at a time. Writing up a PhD works in the same way. A lot of people sit down and they try to do far too many things all at once. Develop the argument, sound convincing, structure the discussion chapter, integrate some theory, write beautifully, make sure you're referencing, and fully understand your contribution to knowledge, all in one go. No wonder this just makes people freeze. So instead of asking, how do I pull the entire thesis together, try asking this instead. What is the one thing I can make sense of today? You will build a coherent thesis through lots of small interpretive moves that gradually compound. That's how the argument emerges. Use these questions. What keeps recurring in the data? What tension keeps appearing? What feels conceptually important? What findings seem to be talking to each other? What surprised you during the research? Those questions give you a way in. They help you start the car and get it moving again, just a little bit. And when that movement begins, when you get that momentum going, clarity often comes with it. One thing I've taught for a long time is the idea of centres of gravity in a PhD thesis. In other words, what are the key ideas that everything seems to come back to? What does everything else orbit around? Those ideas that seem to carry weight across your project, what are they? For example, maybe several of your findings keep coming back to ideas like these: identity, uncertainty, belonging, emotional labour, trust, legitimacy, control. Your argument is often already emerging. You just haven't fully trusted it yet. And this is also why constantly restructuring your thesis isn't necessarily a bad sign. You're probably doing that, aren't you? It's fine. Sometimes it simply means that your argument is still taking shape. And again, that learner-driver analogy is helpful here because you don't become a confident driver before you get in the car. You become a confident driver through driving the car. Confidence develops through movement. And it's the same for writing. It's the same for writing up your PhD. You are becoming more confident the more you write, the more you see how a particular structure works or doesn't work. And then you disassemble it and you try something else. So you're in the process of building confidence. You're in the process of building your argument. You're not doing anything wrong. Quick question for you. What part of writing up feels hardest right now? Is it connecting findings and theory, understanding your contribution, structuring the discussion chapter, trusting your own interpretation, feeling like you don't actually know what your findings mean, or something else altogether? Get into the comments and let me know, because there will be other people watching who are feeling exactly the same as you. One of the most useful things you can do is produce an awful first draft. Honestly, write badly on purpose. Use bullet points, write fragments, leave little notes for yourself. Write, explain this better, or check this theory actually says this thing. Then just keep moving. The reason that a lot of PhD researchers don't make the progress they want to make when they sit down to write is that they're trying to polish as they go along. They're trying to get the paragraph perfect or the reference correct, and that stops their flow. It stops their momentum. So make notes for yourself and then just keep going. Also, what might be going on here is that you are trying to write for an audience. You're thinking about what someone reading this is going to think, whether that's your supervisor, whether that's your examiner. Worry about that later, okay? This is the first draft. It is just for you to get your thinking clear, to get your arguments developed. You can focus on the tidying up and the polishing later. Just don't limit yourself as you're writing. Get those words down. Now, another thing that creates huge discussion chapter writing anxiety is this question that you might keep asking yourself. Have I got this right? Qualitative research rarely works like that. A more useful question is this. Is this a thoughtful, evidence-based interpretation? That's different. Your job is not to produce the final word on your topic. It's not to say, my interpretation is objectively correct. This is the way to make sense of this. Your job is to make a careful, defensible contribution to our understanding of your topic. A lot of PhD researchers massively overestimate how certain they're allowed to be. Most doctoral theses are not written by people who feel massively confident when they're writing. They're written by people who keep writing, despite the fact they might feel uncertain about particular things. Your thesis feeling messy simply means that you are going through the difficult process of turning years of research into meaning, into something that other people can read and make sense of. That is quite a difficult thing to do. This will become clearer through writing, okay, not before it. And usually this process takes quite a bit of time. And that's fine. It's completely normal. You are not expected to write the perfect discussion chapter on the first draft. Not going to happen. You'll go through a lot of iterations and you'll send drafts to your supervisor and they'll have file names like discussion chapter, final, version 3A, use this one. Ask me how I know this. Popping up on your screen right now is another video that I think you'll find helpful if you're struggling to just connect all the wires together at this point in your PhD. So go and check that out. I'll see you in there.